So we have Bruce live in the locker room in Tallahassee celebrating on the field with the Florida State. And I don't know why. Like, we were able to run the ball so well in the first half, especially to the left side. And then all of a sudden, we started to abandon it. And like I said, there is some inconsistency.
How are they going to approach this game? How are they going to beat this Florida State team?
Well, we're going to break you guys.
Okay, that's it. The show's over.
In the story, we're going to break you guys. Look, and I'm joking, but it's true.
Lord, decline continues, KB. Oh my God!
I am sweating.
Look at my heart. Look.
You know what? Yeah, I have so much to say. All right, and welcome back to Seminole Sideline 365. My name is KB, and as always, is the old man. How is it going, everyone? How is your night? How are you doing, old man?
I'm doing pretty good. I tell you, I've been saddled with a throat, head cold, whatever issue for the last 2 weeks since the holidays. And it's one of these things that's going around the country. I'm not the only one. You may have people out at work or whatever, but it's lingers. Now, I haven't been to the doctor yet. I did schedule an appointment next week if I can't kick it. But I'm doing, the usual over-the-counter stuff, some home remedies. And I've just taken the week off. But I've been plenty busy, KB, with monitoring what the hell's going on here now in college football, and more meaningfully, what's going on at Florida State between roster management, transfers, and now a coaching search at Alabama that kind of strikes back at Florida State, which we'll get into tonight. I'm sure you'll lead us there.
Yeah. Also, some big news just came down from the NCAA on Florida State, which I think we may need to address first, because that's going to be a trending topic, which we may see some audience members come into. So I honestly think that's more relevant to Florida State than the Alabama rumors, which I don't think are really anything to worry about. But I really want to go into that first and not waste a lot of time, because we have a lot to cover tonight. So I want to bring up this article. This just broke, I believe, within the last hour. But NCAA levies significant penalties on Florida State related to NIL-related violations. Now, like I said, I'm just learning about this. I just got off of work at around 7:30. So this is the first I'm seeing about this, and maybe the first that you're seeing about this if you work like me. But Pete Nakos at On3 confirmed that the offensive coordinator is hit with a 3-game suspension to start the 2024 season. So he will not be a part of the staff when it comes to the game in Ireland against Georgia Tech. These are level 2 violations. He'll receive a 2-year show clause, which means if he does go to another program, that will be on his resume there. He'll have to, disclose that. The other penalties are included 2 years of probation for Florida State, 3-year dissociation from the booster, and 1 year dissociation from the NIL collective. Also, Atkins cannot recruit off campus during the fall of 2023.
Wow.
So,
wow.
This is, to be clear, this is not in relation to the Battle's End. This is in relation to the Rising Spear NIL collective.
Wow.
So this is where when you have too many collectives going on, some are run professionally, which I would say the Battle's End is probably run very professionally and has done most of the legwork for Florida State. You have these little ones that are trying to get into the space and trying to work inside the Florida State ecosystem, get a piece of the pie, as they may say. And they're the one that get Florida State in trouble. So this is, I'm not going to say this is the death
No,
penalty.
this is a big deal. Go ahead and say it. This is not good news.
No, it's not good news. But I don't want to overreact, but I don't want to underreact. That's what I'm trying to say here, because this is.
Isn't it the first one from the NCAA on any school on NIL issues?
I can't confirm. I don't want to say something that's not true. I can't confirm that.
Okay.
But this is, like I said, I want to reiterate, this is not the Battle's End, which is, I believe, the main NIL collective at Florida State. The Rising Spear,
not the Battle's End.
You hear nothing about, honestly, when it comes to football, which I'm surprised in what relation this had, like, at what level was Florida State using Rising Spear in football. I thought they had nothing to do with the football program at this point. So I don't know if this was something that happened a couple seasons ago. Once again, this is still coming out, so I'm sure there's more details maybe will come out about this. But it seems to be appears to be related to Coach Alex Atkins, a level 2 violation, which is in regards to a boost, and it seems to be in regard to a booster and that collective, and it's he can't recruit in the fall of 2023 off campus. The probation for Florida State as a program, and Alex Atkins will not be on the field for the first 3 games, including the game in Ireland.
That's serious.
It is serious. So
that means he can't leave Tallahassee to go see kids in high school.
For the entire.
Well, this is a serious set of allegations. Has Florida State posted any type of comment on this yet? They know about it. They've known about this, obviously. They knew the investigation was taking place. I mean, this isn't done in secret.
At this point, Florida State football has not posted anything on Twitter that I've seen. The media site from the icing has not posted anything. So I'm sure their lawyers are crafting a statement. Once again, it's tough because, these collectives and the universities, have to work a fine line. And this may be where that fine line got crossed at some point, right? I don't want to say things that aren't true. This is, I don't think this will be the first time this happens in any program, right? I expect this, like you said, I've heard about it happening at a program, but I'm sure it will not be the first time. It'll happen to many different programs. And I think this is going to be the start of these kind of fringe NILs. They need to go away. They can't be. I don't see how universities will have 3 or 4 or 5 different NIL collectives operating. They need to be, and I feel like we talked about this last year where, there's Rising Spear, then there's that other one that I can't pronounce, and then there's Battle's End. And it seemed like over time the Battle's End became the real corporate one.
They're the most credible that Florida State has.
Exactly. And it seemed like the other ones went by the wayside, but that can be a bad thing because they're trying to stay relevant and work in the shadows where, the corporate one, you kind of know what it's doing. It's the top level, but you have these other ones that are still fighting for that piece of the pie. And that kind of needs to go away, right? So,
well, that's KB. I don't want to interrupt you. You're doing a good job on this summary here. That brings us to a topic we're going to talk about a little bit later about our new quarterback and Big Dave, his father. Big Dave has his own NIL type of business going on. I don't know all the intricate details, but I'll talk about that a little bit later in the show.
Yeah. So once again, more information will come about this, I'm sure. I'm sure there may be some additional things about. I don't know if there's going to be a loss of scholarships with that. I'm reading. I'm like reading as I go about this in terms of the details of this. So if anyone in the chat, if you guys know any additional details about this and what's going on here, but it seems like here's some details about it. It says that during the meeting with the Rising Spear Collective, the booster involved with this encouraged a prospect to enroll at Florida State and offered him an NIL opportunity with the collective worth approximately $15,000 per month during the first year at school. And so with that, as at Florida State, Coach Alex Atkins is found to have committed the violations, which include the impermissible recruiting activity and facilitating impermissible contact with the booster. So Atkins is alleged to have driven a prospect and his parents to a meeting with the leading member of the collective. So that's where that gray line, that fine line is. The coaching staff cannot get involved, which is driving the kid to the collective office. Even though these kids are getting money and they're playing for the team, you can't even drive. That's how So now that then that's where I can't
it's a wild west show.
The NCAA will allow these kids to get cash and then show up on the field to plan to the coaches. But if the coaches leads them in the right direction to the office to get money, then that's where
it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. The NCAA has not put any controls really about this stuff. They have been very weak in their control and in their initiatives, programs. This won't be the last time potentially a Florida State gets hand slapped. It won't be the first and last that goes on at any program. I mean, it's a wild, as many coaches have said, it's a Wild West show, And now this also goes back to the communication between the compliance officers. That is a big deal at these football programs now, and athletics in colleges, all sports. The compliance office, if a coach is not sure of what he's supposed to do, he needs to go to the compliance office and get an answer. You can't just willy-nilly any of this stuff now, because it is so weak, it's so diluted, it's uncontrolled, and you can easily step over the line. And if you don't think some parent or some player or some ex-player or some potential player who gets disgruntled is not going to drop a dime on you, you're mistaken. And this is a stain now, not only on Florida State, but it's also a stain on Alex Atkins. Okay. So it's something he's going to have to deal with. But
and I don't want to go. No, like you said, it's bad, but like it could be something where, like you said, the coaches are not well versed enough to know that I can't do that. Like you would think so, but at the same time, like you said, the process is so Wild West that kids, like are making six figures. I can't even drop the kid off at the office where he can learn about the opportunities. Like that's where the line is crossed. Is so dumb to me. Let me talk more about the penalties here.
Yeah, but let me say this. Let me say this too. The article that's written is an article. We can't say anything in there is truly factual at this point. These are allegations. Florida State has not issued an official statement on this, whether they accept it, whether they're going to appeal it, whether they're going to send back. Usually NCAA will send you these allegations, their investigation, and then you're asked, are you going to cooperate with the investigation? And if you then get the report, you have a chance to comment back to them. That's how civil processes go. So let's make sure whatever comes out in social media, whatever comes out in newspaper articles, let's make sure we hold off on what the true facts really are about FSU, about the allegations about Coach Atkins. But it's not good. And the timing is very interesting as well.
It is. It just seems like, it is. I would agree with you on the timing. It's very, very weird. So let's talk a little bit more in detail on some of these potential penalties. We talked about 2 years probation, scholarship reductions of 5% over the next 2 years.
Let me interrupt you one more time.
Okay, come on. Can I just
that these are potential penalties. These aren't confirmed penalties, are they?
Yes, that's what they're saying. These are the confirmed penalties of this.
Really? That Florida State has accepted?
You can accept whether this is the NCAA. The quote to this tweet is NCAA is expected to levy unprecedented penalties for NIL related violations committed by Florida State sources. So once again, exactly. So this isn't confirmed, but this is what the sources have told the sources apparently. So if this comes true, this would be very, very significant and would set a benchmark for all college programs in my eyes.
This is almost, and it's almost like the sources told the sources told the sources.
Yeah, they're not just making up.
And I don't want, and we're going to get into this about Norvell going potentially to Bama or not. Okay, isn't it interesting the timing that comes into a guy who potentially could make a career choice, and now this comes in.
Agreed.
Very, very interesting.
So 2 years probation there. So this is, like you said, what the sources are saying would be the penalties. 2 years of probation, scholarship reductions of 5% of the next 2 academic years, which I believe they range around 5 scholarships, which is significant in the day portal age. We're talking about portal and what you are giving out there. So you would have to be very careful with who you give scholarships out to. Reduction by 7 in official visits for recruiting for the year 2023-24. So this upcoming season. A probation of recruiting communication for 6 weeks of the next 2 academic years, including this next week. So this would kick in right away next week. So that would hurt you in recruiting once again. Probation on communication with athletes in the transfer portal from April 15th to 21st. So that means this next transfer portal weekend in the spring, they would put you on probation on communicating with athletes in the portal. That's a big one. Reduction of evaluation by 18 days this spring. Once again, that's significant. And a financial penalty of 1% of the athletic department's budget.
Wow.
It seems like for an organization like the NCAA that has done nothing to outline the rules of NIL, this is a very dramatic penalty for giving a kid a ride to the NIL office.
But this is the same organization, KB, that raised the application fee for FCS to FBS from $5,000. This is a fact, from $5,000 to $5 million. The same organization.
Yeah, it's beyond crazy. So I once again, there's gonna be more news coming out about this, I'm sure. Everyone's going to be covering this. I just thought it was relevant because I just saw it, and this is very, very relevant. Just came out within the last hour.
Wow.
But let us know your thoughts as you're thinking about it. If you guys see things that are coming out as we move on to next topics, let us know. But I mean, they're setting the standard. They're setting the benchmark against Florida State. It seems like every time Florida State gets some good news, something bad comes out. And like I said, if this was. It's a mistake by Alex Atkins, but once again, I don't think if that is what actually happened, he gave a kid a ride to a meeting to meet a collective. Well, you got to know you got to know what the lines are. The lines are so blurry between what NIL is and isn't that these penalties don't meet the crime in my eyes. But yeah.
No, it doesn't. Not for those penalties. If he didn't know, it was inadvertent, and that's the penalties you get. That's an awful heavy penalty. And you know what? If Alex Atkins did this, or any coach did this, and we're not saying he did do it, he hasn't said he did it, is he should go to Coach Norvell, explain what happened, be honest and open about it, and then if that's what happened, that's the facts. So then you have to take whatever penalties are coming. But this is an issue that I can't, but Florida State has already been involved in this issue. They knew this was coming, and this is not going to be a surprise to them. That's not how it really works. No. So this isn't like it breaks in the newspaper and they just find out. They are aware of this, and we'll have to see what their official statement will be on this. So that is something we didn't have on our program tonight, but you picked it off. I saw it a little bit as we came on the air. Oh, man, I'm telling you, December and January have not been good months so far, except for our transfers.
I was going to say, and we're going to get into that. So it's not all been bad news, but it's been like good then bad. And once again, if you're a Florida State fan, you do somewhat, it seems like feel targeted, whether it's targeted by ESPN and Disney and now the NCAA and or college football in general, right? It seems like they're
however, I think as Mark, I think just to end this, I think it was, Mark Dorfman here. Mark, welcome to the program again. Glad to have you here again. Yep. Harbaugh actually cheated. I
know.
I mean, and that investigation is still going on. Okay. Yeah. And they had to dismiss it, a coach. And if we're getting this penalty, what the hell are they going to get?
No, they just got to go to an NCAA title and win it.
And win the damn title.
Yeah, no scholarships taken away.
Well, we'll see what the NCAA does. But I know we're going to move on to our other topics. But
And I would expect
not a good way to start the program.
But once again, you're going to have to put up a legal fight for this. You're trying to get out of the ACC.
Yeah,
like they're trying to make
unreal.
it so hard for you to actually maneuver right now.
Wow.
It's crazy. So let's move into our next topic. I don't want it to be all, but another thing we have to address, obviously, is the rumor in the room, as it may be. Does Norvell to Bama actually make sense? If you've been on Twitter, I went on at lunch, and
I've been on there all day.
Yeah, this has been the big topic of the day. The legend retires. Whether or not you hate Alabama or not, the guy's a legend. One of the best, the best college football coach of all time. You have
He's
to respect
the Vince Lombardi of college football. And I will add this as you get into your speech here, is he retired. Bill Belichick checked out today. He didn't say he was going to retire from New England. He's gone. And Carroll out at Seattle, he's out. So
yeah,
age is catching up to coaches.
Some of the best coaches, that is, in football
legends,
ever.
Legends.
But you lose him, and that opens probably the biggest job opening. I can't remember, like the biggest job opening in football for a while, maybe since Saban went to the Dolphins. So it's been a while. When he left LSU, it was LSU he left, right, to go to the Dolphins. But there's a big program needs a new successor. And unlike when Florida State and Bobby Bowden stepped down and Jimbo Fisher was there to take over, you don't have that at Alabama, and they're looking for their next guy. And obviously, they're not going to take a risk in just promote an assistant, even though Alabama staff is typically loaded with some of the best assistants in the country, right? He usually gets head coaches who are fired somewhere and gets them to be offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators. You see Bill O'Brien's and stuff like that typically on staff. But, I personally thought it was going to be Dan Lanning. I thought that made sense. Former GA, I think, at Bama. He was on the Georgia staff for a while. Phenomenal coach for, in many aspects, what he's done at Oregon, elite recruiter, especially what he's done at Oregon, like I said. And all things made sense for him to have a pipeline in the South and be able to build back up what he's done. But he came out and said, I'm not going anywhere. They made the big promotional video. He sort of used it as a recruiting tool to say, I'm building something here. And if you want to play, if you want to come out here and play with us, because we're not going anywhere. And I thought it was kind of smart. He turned the media attention around into look at Oregon, look at us, and come join us.
Plus, he's going into the Big Ten.
Exactly. That's exactly a good point. I think if that wasn't happening, he definitely moves. If that wasn't happening, if he wasn't able to go to the Power 2 conferences, I think you're absolutely right. I think he then does make the move. But that's the power of joining a power. Guys don't have to leave places like Oregon anymore because they know they're going to be competing in some of the best conferences.
And that's exactly why, KB, Florida State, the number one priority for Florida State University and this sports program, most importantly, football, they must leave the ACC to get to one of the two mega conferences, period.
100%. I think everyone agrees with you on that for sure. Now, when we talk about Norvell, and I'm not going to stand here and yell and try to create clicks and say Norvell's gone, he's going to Alabama, because I don't think it makes sense. Even though the odds makers would say Norvell is a high odds pick, because if you look at the odds here, I believe he was this has shifted. He, plus 700, plus, if you look at wherever you bet, FanDuel, wherever you go, offshore, if that's kind of your deal. He was one of the top 5 picks to be the successor there. And one of the reasons is because he's been the phenomenal head coach for the last 2 years, right? Well, we keep talking about his record, 23, 24 wins, 3 or 4 losses. Unbelievable. And the way he's built back Florida State into a national relevant program again from where it was under Willie Taggart in the end days of Jimbo Fisher. So it only makes sense for Mike Norvell's name to be in there. Names on here that don't make sense to me are Lane Kiffin, Dabo, I don't think makes sense.
Why?
And
I'll
say why.
Okay.
And it's the same reason why I don't think Mike Norvell okay.
Dabo and Mike Norvell are two different
you're right.
parts of their career.
So let me talk about that. Why doesn't Dabo make sense is because he has not, in my opinion, navigated NIL well enough. And I think NIL it's not a huge portion of what Bama does, but they need a coach there who can recruit at the highest level, which Dabo is definitely capable of doing that. Recruiting at an elite level, which he routinely does. But you also need someone who's able to manage the NIL side of it. And Clemson and Dabo has not embraced NIL. He still says Jesus is our NIL. Like he says that. Like he's said that before. God is our NIL. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but you've seen a little bit Clemson take a step back because they have not embraced the new age of college football, which is balancing both sides of the coin, right?
Which is NIL and transfer portal. That's what they hit him on. Exactly. He's not big on the transfer portal.
Exactly. And Alabama, you see Georgia, they go in there selectively and get the right guys. And they also recruit at the top 3 level every year. Same with Bama. They do the same thing. They're able to get guys that they need out of the transfer portal.
But let me ask you this about Dabo. Dabo has how many national championships? 1 or 2? 2?
2? 1 or 2, yeah.
It doesn't matter. He's got 1 at least, okay? So he's been to that level. Yeah, he built a Clemson program that wasn't super good when he took it over. He's been there a long time.
2 national championships.
Yeah, it's time. He's been there how many? 10-plus years?
He's been there since the 2008 season.
Okay, he's been there a long time.
Yeah.
It's almost perfect timing for him. If he goes for an interview, I can't imagine they wouldn't interview Dabo Swinney.
Oh, no.
And what I'm saying is, if they can say, Dabo, what is your outlook on NIL? What's your outlook on the portal and so on? He's going to have to, any coach is going to have to answer those questions. If he says, I'm against both of those, I'm not big on any of those, they're going to see him as a guy who is not changing with the times, and he'll be out. He wouldn't get the job. If he says, listen, I'm starting to understand it better. I do believe we need a balance between portal and high school recruiting and development and so on, and he says the right things, I think he has a shot at the job, okay, depending on what their boosters and all those powerful people with money say. It's the boosters and the money and the NILs. It's more the boosters, the powerful people in the Alabama circles, and Saban as well. If Saban doesn't like Dabo Swinney, that guy is not going to get in the door for an interview. So I think he has a shot. And I think if you just compared resumes between him and Norvell, I think there is a difference. Dabo's resume is more mature, and he's been in the high-pressure seats longer than Mike Norvell has at this point.
You're right. And I do want to retract some of my statement. I think at a program like Alabama and Clemson, or Alabama and Georgia and stuff like that, NIL is important, but it's not as important, say, as at Clemson. I think for me, that shows kind of a mark on his resume that he is not. Clemson needs NIL a lot more than, say, Georgia or Clemson does right now. Like Saban for him, players would give up certain aspects, I think, of money, or and this has been said on other shows. If you look at big podcasts, Florida State may, in fact, have a better NIL collective in the Battle's End than Alabama does, but it didn't matter because Nick Saban. Players just wanted to play for Nick Saban, and somehow they would take a discount to go play for Nick Saban
and Alabama.
Right? Exactly. So there's a couple things that need to change with Alabama is that you are going to lose a legend, and you're not going to replace a legend, right? You can't replace a legend. But so you need a coach who's going to be able to come in, kind of help navigate the NIL process a little bit, but also recruit at an elite level. You look at Clemson right now; they don't have a top 10 recruiting class in just high school recruiting. Last year, they didn't have a top 10 recruiting class either. If you look at On3 rankings, they also don't embrace the portal either. So he's kind of fallen off the recruiting game, and he's fallen off the transfer portal NIL game. I think that's too big a risk for the Alabama boosters to say this isn't going to be the guy that's going to keep us as a top 3 high school recruiting power, because that is how they've been successful as a power as of this point. They need someone who's willing to come in and embrace the the new landscape of college football while recruiting at an elite level in the high school ranks as well. I don't think that's Dabo, but I think, like you said, you get him in as an interview. Regarding Norvell, I think in maybe 5 or 10 years would be a perfect candidate for this. One, I don't want to say he's not interested, because I think every college football coach in the industry would be interested in this position, right? It's like seeing a job
let me give you a reason not to be interested.
Well,
You're following a legend.
Well, that's why
you're following a legend. Sometimes that's not the best place for a young coach like Mike Norvell.
Building your
I said on a tweet today, if Mike Norvell takes this job, it's a mistake. Okay. If he wants to leverage this job for more money at Florida State, go for it. It's business. I get it. I don't like it. And I don't like that Mike Norvell has not shut down this story out there. I don't like that. And the other thing is, if he takes the job, he'll never finish the contract. So get a big buyout offer.
Yeah, I agree. This is one of the toughest things to do, like you said, is following a legend, because you can't really build your own. You can't outdo what Nick Saban did.
History shows.
But how do you do better than what Nick Saban did? You would have to be going the Kirby Smart like run where you win 2-3 national championships in a row, which is so hard to do. And do that. Every one of Nick Saban's 4-year high school classes or incoming classes won the national championship there. That's incredible. So if you were there for 4 years, you won the national championship at least once. That is incredible. And so that, like you said, it's hard to build as a young coach like Mike Norvell. You would be setting yourself up for almost failure. The other thing is that on the Alabama side, I don't think he's a good match for what they're looking for once again. Mike Norvell at this point in his career just hasn't shown himself to be an elite high school recruiter yet. And once again, that is how Alabama has dominated their landscape so far. Now, some of that was the legend of Nick Saban and what he was doing, but that is what the boosters in them see as what they need. They need that elite high school recruiter who set up a program, set up a staff, set up a team that can bring the best blue chip 5-star guys in and dominate at the highest level. And Mike Norvell in his career just still hasn't shown the ability to recruit 5-star classes consistently. And once again, if this is 5 or 10 years down the line, I think the story would be different, because I think Mike Norvell will get there. I just think he's still – he only took over Florida State 4 or 5 years ago. Exactly. This is his first time at the Power 5 level.
Exactly.
And so I think if this was different, I think the next person after whoever takes over for Saban, when that job opens up, because it will probably open up really early again, because I don't think it's, like you said, it's going to be hard to follow in Nick Saban. I think that will be potentially the right time.
Well, I think this. Let me give you what I've been tweeting about. My greatest disappointment, Mike Norvell's not going anywhere.
No, he is.
I'll go on the record to say that. Mike Norvell is not leaving this program.
No.
His agent, Jimmy Sexton, who represents a lot of these guys, including Saban, this guy is a damn good sports agent, period. Lawyer, sports agent. And he's in negotiations now with AD Mike Alford and the university, Florida State University, to get a huge contract extension with great incentives built in for Mike Norvell. And he is telling Mike Norvell how to play this out. He's telling him, don't put out any statements. Be very generic in any statements you put out. Continue to do your job. Even they said that about Nick Saban. Nick Saban was doing his job right up to the point of him starting to depart. The first thing Nick Saban I heard he did was he went to the players. He called the players before he did anything else, before he told anybody else. He went to the players first, so they heard it first. That is a coach who has the players' backs. What I don't like what Mike Norvell is doing right now is he's been told by probably Sexton to hold your ground. We're going to get this contract. We're going to get this contract extended, get more money on it for you, get you more financial security here at Florida State, where you've indicated you want to stay anyways. So we're going to leverage this. And he said, and what I don't like, KB, I'm very disappointed that his players are held in balance. He, as we will talk about, he added some players in the last couple of days, one today from Alabama. That is an indication to me. How would a guy add a guy from Alabama and then leave to go to Alabama? Makes no sense. It defies logic, and it would be a huge flaw in Norvell's character and judgment to conduct this corporate business this way. And let's not forget, it's all corporate business. Every step he's taking right now is a corporate coaching career objective. And that's how it is. Good coaches are always in demand. But if you're not really going, you've got to kill this story, and you've got to kill it as quick as possible for your players, number one, and a fan base, an FSU fan base from all over the world and all over this country that believes in you. If you leave them hanging, they're going to start to question, are you real or are you fake?
Yeah. So, and like you said, I think when this came, remember with the Texas A&M job in November, we were kind of asking the same thing, like, when's a statement going to be made? And his statement basically was, I can't control any of that.
I
Obviously,
didn't like that either.
I like what we're building here. That, we have an opportunity ahead. This is a special place. I just don't know. But, and I know there's money on the line. His contract is through 2029. His last extension, I think, was they said last February, a year or two ago. He's getting paid $8.9 million right now, or $8 million a year.
It's going to go over 10. You wait and see.
Yeah, I mean,
it's going to go over 10.
But once again, at some point, you can't let this linger too long. And the reason why, and these sites they're like, why is Florida State fans? Why are our fans getting so uptight about this? It's because every one of these YouTube channels does a reaction video every single day about every single piece of news. If Mike Norvell has a bowel movement, you'll see a reaction video about it. And so now, when Mike Norvell won't make a defiant statement that says, I'm not interested, or I'm here to stay for the long term, and I'm building this program to go compete for a national championship next year, that's all his 2 words. But like you said, he's playing the money game and stuff like that. I get it. So it's not wrong for people. And when you see his name at the top of the list because Dan Lanning's no longer a candidate, that's the position you're in. So I'm not going to get.
I don't blame Mike Norvell.
No, I don't blame Mike.
I don't think you do either. And let's make sure everybody understands this too. At least from me, I'm not speaking for you. I don't blame players anymore. I grew up in a different era of college football. It's all changed. I embrace change. Don't let us ever say that players are trying to gouge the system. Don't let us say players are leveraging the system. They're being selfish. They're being greedy because the coaches are in the same corporate mentality, but they do it on a smoother basis. They have these agents that are professionals at what they do. So what Mike Norvell is doing is working with his agent through this. There's no doubt Alabama is going to wrap this up pretty quick by this weekend. There's absolutely tomorrow's Friday. They don't want player erosion. They want to get a guy in, and they're going to do that. So I'm sure Jimmy Sexton has said to Mike Norvell, just hold on, play the same card you did on the A&M thing. Coach, you got to get used to this because that you're going to be coming up. But Mike Norvell is not a guy who can play the Kirby Smart card, who played it after the Orange Bowl and said, what? This whole Orange Bowl thing was a joke, basically, he said, and you got to clean this all up, these bowl games. Mike Norvell didn't say that. That's what I wish Mike Norvell said. But it shows you the difference between a very mature coach with a solid resume and a younger coach who doesn't have as strong as resume. these mature coaches like Saban, Smart, and some of the other ones can say what the hell they want to say and pretty much get away with it. Mike Norvell is still young and evolving, and he's playing it very carefully, all these steps.
So we'll leave it there and just wrap it up. We neither of us believe he's going anywhere. I think that's, once again, that's just going to be the trending topic to either get you riled up or to drive clicks.
It is.
So we
think and that's okay. And that's it's water cooler talk. It's interesting. Yeah. If Mike Norvell leaves, I will be shocked. First, that Alabama chose him, and second, and that's no disrespect to Mike Norvell, I'd be shocked that they chose him, and two, that he would accept this job, which could derail his career, not help it.
Agreed. All right, let's move forward.
Let me add one thing to that. Let me add one final point. This is important, and I know you know it's important. This is exactly the reason, the importance of Florida State filing the lawsuit, which they did, firing the Cannons to get out of this ACC. If not, you will lose coaches like Norvell. And if you don't get out, another guy will come in and you'll lose him. And you will lose players. You won't be getting players. You won't be competing for playoffs or national championships. That's the bottom line. That's more important than any kid you bring into this program or any coach you bring in. You've got to get out to one of those mega conferences. You write that down. That's more important than anything.
Yeah, I agree. If you stay in the ACC for 2 more years, you're not going to have a high-profile coach. Or players. So that's we're in agreement there. All right, let's move forward to the updates in the transfer portal, regardless of NIL penalties or crap like that. Because there's been a lot of news, as you probably all know. People are getting a little bit anxious a couple of weeks ago, including myself, in that we needed to make some moves.
Well, they made the first big one they had to move, right?
Yeah, well, we need to make some moves, especially in the trenches. It's all started. A lot of it started with some of your skill positions and what you're doing.
I think it started with the quarterback.
Well, yeah, it started with a quarterback in terms of you getting DJU coming in.
Well, that's big, don't you think?
Oregon State, yeah, absolutely big. You got your quarterback. You got him solidified so that you could start building around that. Well, obviously we talked about MJJ, Marvin Jones Jr. coming in to get your edge player there. Then you got DJU coming in, which is obviously we all know that's a big to get your quarterback position solidified. You can start building around that, whether it's receivers, whether it's tight ends, whether it's your line. But you can start using him too as a recruiter to see, okay, who else can we bring in? Obviously, he was a really great player at Clemson, great player at Oregon State. What they did, their run, they were a top 10 team at one point last year on the run they went on. And you get. Well,
I'm not sure he was a great player at Clemson, or he would have stayed at Clemson.
Well, I wouldn't say he was a bad player either.
No, I'm not saying he was a bad player. I think he was
defined as not a great player.
I think he was an effective player there. Well, he was. I assume he was going to lose his job. And that's why he transferred out.
They started Cade, and Clemson hasn't been the same since.
Well, I didn't say that, but he felt job insecurity there, and he decided, I'm going to move on. I'm going to move on.
Yeah. He said they're going to start.
Okay, so
he threw for 22 touchdowns his last season at Clemson. In 2,500 yards. Like you said, I thought he was good to great at Florida. He wasn't elite at Clemson, but he was good to great. And he basically did the same thing at Oregon State.
Yeah, I agree.
So you know what you're getting. That's the thing. You're not going to get any surprises with DJ.
Well, yeah, I think what you're getting with DJ and what I like about this guy is he's a mature guy now. He's an experienced quarterback in this league. He's a very experienced quarterback in this league, and he picks up systems fairly quickly. Okay. Now, there's some people who will make some arguments about his strengths and his weaknesses, but Florida State, more than anything else, had to solidify this position at quarterback. They ran Tate Rodemaker out of here by bringing in Cam, what's his name?
The guy they didn't run him off. He just quit.
No. What I'm saying is he ran. Yeah, they ran him off because they brought in two veteran quarterbacks, showing him that he wasn't going to be number one. Okay,
that was clear.
And that's why DJ left Clemson. It was pretty clear to him that this wasn't a good fit anymore. So he left. So I think we're bringing in a one-year guy that can manage the tools, the specialty tools on this offense very well. He's a low-key guy. He's not a rah-rah guy. And I think he's a big guy. He's a physical guy. He weighs like 250 pounds. He's not going to
250. He's not going to
beat you with your legs. However, what that brings up is you must create effective pockets for him to deliver the football. Okay.
But he's not a statue either. He's like Big Ben in the way that he can use his legs when he needs to, and he's not a statue back there.
But he's going to go more north south. He's not going to be. He's not going to be.
His first inclination is not to run. It's to stand back and pass the ball.
His numbers don't show that exactly. But I'm very good about him coming into this program.
Yeah, now he's definitely carried the ball. I don't want that.
Oh, he's a load. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
Now, on that subject, while we're on it, we might as well transition into it, or do you want to wait till later about his pop?
No, I want to talk about the transfers.
Okay, we'll talk about that, and then we'll get into Big Dave later.
So you landed DJ. And then you start to get some more good news the week following. You got Little Jr., which I think there's a lot of great upside there. Now people question, did you need more defensive backs? And at first I was like, Little Jr., younger guy, multiple years of experience still left on him from Alabama, and you were in that battle to get him. And I think it's a great pickup because once again, I love when you go to the portal and you get guys with multiple years still left and still a lot of upside. And this was a guy who was a top 100 player, top 12 position player at the cornerback position at high school. And Nick Saban wanted him for a reason. And like we talked about before, Nick Saban gets who he wants at defensive back position most of the time. And that's why you lost that battle, but you get him second time around. And I think he immediately adds a lot of talent to that room. And I think Patrick Surtain, I believe he coached him in high school, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong, Chad. But I think it's a fantastic pickup for the room. And you have to remind yourself that this team did lose a lot of talent in the defensive backfield this year. So you're going to be losing, Jarian Jones, and you're going to be losing Akeem Dents, and you're going to be losing, 2 or 3 guys of experience who were really good players. So it's good to get that. Once again, it's not all about who's going to be able to start right away, but it's also the depth. Raising the talent floor of this team. And I think Little's a great example of raising the talent floor of this team, and you get them for 2 or 3 more years, which is great. You move forward to Jaylen Brown. This was a little bit of a head scratcher to me in terms of you add Jaylen Brown, and I'll recruit Malik Benson into that same category. 2 skill position players. The reason it's a little bit of a head scratcher, once again, Jaylen Brown was the guy that you wanted out of high school. Highly rated player. Top, was he a top 10, depending on what site you're looking at, top 10 receiver in the country.
Do you have Jaylen Brown or Devontae Brown?
Oh, Jaylen Brown.
Okay.
Out of LSU. Or he was, sorry, out of LSU. Highly rated player that you originally wanted. You wanted to pair him up with Hakeem Williams out of high school. But you lost that battle, which is fine. But the thing is that you already have a highly loaded receiver room, when you look at it. And this isn't including all the guys you just brought from high school, right? You have Span, Hill, Darian, Kentron, Hakeem, Jakai. Then you brought, you had Goldie Lawrence, who was on your team, but now he's transferred out. But you then brought on all these other highly recruited high school guys. And then you bring in Malik Benson from Alabama as well, another highly recruited guy, as well as Jaylen Brown. So my only issue is that you're bringing in a lot of guys who have a lot of potential but no production yet. And that's where you have a veteran quarterback coming into this team, but you don't have that experienced veteran receiver that's going to be like, who's been there, done it before. You have a bunch of kind of puppies that still need to a little kind of grow up on the field, so to speak, and show what they got. And that's not to say that none of these guys won't step up next year. But it kind of scares me a little bit when you're going to be traveling overseas for the first game of the season to play Georgia Tech, and none of these guys have had to show up in the big moment yet. A guy that does surprise me that could do that is Jalen Lucas, Ja'Kai Douglas's brother, right? From Indiana. This guy comes in. He's going to be your kick return specialist. That's why you brought him, which I do
Does
like.
he do punts too?
Yes, I believe he does both. I know he does kick returns. I'm sure they'll try him out of the punt return because the guy has speed for days. He had 2 kick returns out of Indiana, 3 for his career, I believe. He has multiple years of experience, a ton of speed, and Mike Norvell loves using speed. You saw how he used Ja'Kai and Deuce Spann last year in multiple different sets. But this guy actually has 300 yards of receiving. He's going to be your leading receiver next year, returning receiver on this team, next to Ja'Kai Douglas. That's how little experience this team has in terms of returning production. Jalen Lucas will be your leading receiver heading into next year, receiving yard wise, for your receiving core. That's what scares me a little bit. But all these guys have great potential, which is exciting. Any of them could develop into the next star, whether it be Jalen Lucas, Jalen Brown, or Malik Benson. All of them have, and you look at Malik Benson, he 5-star guy from On3, top player. So this is the most loaded position group you have right now is your receiver group. You just need to see them show up on the field. Whether that's Hakeem Williams, who you brought in, who is a 5-star guy, whether it's Malik Benson now, one of these guys has to become the alpha because you lost Johnny Wilson and you lost Keon Coleman. You do not have those safety blankets anymore. And now those are, 2 very nice guys to have during big stretches last year. And remember, what was it, the Pittsburgh game where you didn't have either of those 2 guys? And the only guy that stepped up was Ja'Kai Douglas. He was the only guy that had over 100 yards last year. Everyone else had 20 yards. Ja'Kai was the only guy that stepped up. So I'm expecting a big year for Ja'Kai. And we're going to need one of these younger guys to really step up. And that's it. Because you've picked the receivers. I don't think Florida State's going to get another receiver. It's going to be all these young guys that need to step up.
I kind of, as I was somehow I lost track of the LSU Jalen Brown guy. I don't know where I missed him. But I was rating them based on, are they a potential guy or are they a production guy? And I think you're exactly right, KB. Most of the guys that have been brought in are more potential guys. They don't have a track record of production at this point, including what you just said, Malik Benson from Alabama. He's a 1-year guy. He was the number 1 JUCO guy before he got to Alabama, but he really doesn't have much big-time production, okay? That's a guy. Earl Little Jr., a guy who has high ceiling potential, but not production. Another guy you mentioned was Marvin Jones Jr., very high potential, not a lot of production. The difference is we do have an experienced quarterback who has good production, solid production, mature production that should be able to deliver the ball if we can get blocking up front.
Yeah. And that's the other question, right? And that's where I was getting scared, and I think you were too, is that we were bringing in all these skill position players, a lot of receivers, stuff like that. And we were like, when are we going to take care of the trenches? Because I think you and I believe is that you win championships through the trenches. And what was the biggest indicator of that last season? You brought in Braden Fisk. You built on top of the frame that you had with Jared Verse and Fabian Lovett. And I think Braden Fisk put you over the top last year. He took pressure off of Fabian Lovett. He took pressure off of Jared Verse and Patrick.
Made everybody better. Made everybody better.
That defensive line played like a team last year. They relied on each other, and they didn't try to do their own thing, and they were dominant. Everyone was dominant because they could rotate. No one tried to do it themselves, and they were dominant. And that's the thing. I wanted to see that type of play, but you're losing 3 of those guys now. And now you have to try to figure out, how do you replace that production? How do you replace those stars?
Well, they brought in some guys now from the portal this week.
Yeah, the first guy, and last week. So the first guy you brought in was Grady Kelly from Colorado State. I think you and I see him, once again, this guy with production. This is a veteran guy. Yep. Veteran guy, but we see him as more of a Malcolm Ray type replacement. The guy you can rotate in. He's definitely not going to be a Braden Fisk type player who's going to be, dominating blocks and breaking down guys.
I think he could reach a Fabian Lovett type level or exceed it.
Yeah. So, but a guy, like you said, a guy who's going to be able to come in and play right away. You don't expect him to be sitting the bench and
no, he's an enthusiastic guy with a good motor, and he's coming in because he wants to develop to get to the next level.
100%. 6'4", 275. A pretty big kid. If he can add some size in the offseason, I think he can definitely have a good impact.
Yeah, I mean, you can't bring a kid in from high school who's going to plug and play like this guy.
Unless he's a 5-star. Unless he's a true 5-star. And that's what we're talking about, those elite players that can have their bodies built already. And that's why they're 5-stars.
I think Grady Kelly's going to be a good addition to this football team.
And then we talk about we got the kid, and like you said, this week we started to see that those additional line players come in. So we got Tamawa. I'm not going to butcher your last name, sir. Tamawa, Dorje. That's probably correct. From West Virginia. Now this is another guy with a 1 year of experience, but he had a good year. He was only a freshman last year. What I like about him,
he's got 3 years of eligibility.
100%, and that's what I like about him is that. Once again, I'm not expecting him to come in and be Braden Fisk, but this guy has 3 more years that you can get out of him and develop him.
But he's got to fit that rotation. That's why he's coming in. He's got to get in that rotation.
And he knows that. And he's made some statements that he's not coming in here to just rotate.
Right.
He wants to come in and play and make an impact. And he had 23 tackles total last year, 6 tackles for loss and 3.5 sacks.
He put that out on Twitter. Somebody, I don't know who it was, said, well, he's going to be a good depth player. And
he said, I'm not here to be a depth player.
I'm not here to be a depth player.
Exactly.
So,
and I like
him.
I like that. He like you said,
feisty.
And he's taking a step up to a bigger program on a bigger stage, and he wants to come in, and I like that. And he knows that he has room to develop, and I think that's what coaching staff sees. So this guy has a frame that you can build on. I'm sure he'll be in the strength and conditioning program, Storms, add some weight to that frame because he's listed as 6'4", 254. The guy can get bigger, right? He can add to his frame. So another, I think, an exciting prospect. And like you said, a guy that even though you missed in the high school ranks, this is the guy that could play right away. And it's almost as good as getting a high school player. It's better than getting a 3 or 4 star player. It's better than that.
I know Bud Elliott kind of questioned, Bud Elliott on social media kind of questioned the pickup, called it interesting. Yeah. But I think it's probably a good move. Because of the 3 years of eligibility, they're willing to bring him in and work with him.
I would agree with you. And that's why I said, in terms of the situation we're in, you did miss on some guys in high school. You missed on Armando Blount, the 5-star out of high school. And this is what you have to do to make up for that. And that's why I go back. If you miss in the high school ranks for the top tier guys, you have to make moves like this. And
yes,
and this is your backup move. You get a guy who had good production his freshman year, and you get a guy that you hope you can develop and turn into a 4-star, 5-star type player, right, in 3 years. So this is what you do. And you'll see if it works out. So I agree with you. And then you have Sione, and once again, I need to learn these names. I get it. I get it. I'm going to learn the names by the Loloe from Oregon State, that DJU connection, Big Dave connection, which I love, is the Polynesian connection out there at Oregon State. You bring him in, and once again, this is a veteran guy. This isn't a 3 years to develop. This guy is going to come in.
He's going to be a 1 year guy,
one and done, ready to play. But he's taken a step up with the Oregon State coach, obviously leaving from Michigan State. But you compete for this guy. He was looking at USC. They thought he would take a trip out to USC to visit them. Yep. But you got him to commit right away and come to campus and commit, which is a great win, I think, for the staff. And he's plug and play. He's going to be rotating, I would assume, with MJJ. and Peyton and that group. So you got another veteran depth piece who was able to make some big plays for Oregon State last year on a pretty good team. So I think this is a great pickup.
I like it.
It's someone you had to pick up, right? Someone you had to get because of some of the misses in high school and based on the guys you lost, right?
I gotta believe the coaching staff also asked DJ about this kid, and he said, yeah, this guy's productive.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's about productivity and potential.
100%. And you can look up his tape. He's got some really good tape, good size. 8.5 tackles for loss last year.
Yeah, he's 6'3", 266. Yeah, I thought he could, if you needed help inside, I think he could play some inside for you, but he's more of an edge guy.
Exactly. Playing 40 career games, 88 tackles on his career.
He was second team all Pac-12.
Exactly. So you're getting a guy that's going to be ready to play.
He's ready. He's plug and play guy. He's going to get the routine down. He's going to get into the rotation. I think they're using kind of an 8-man rotation up front, and I think that's good. It's good for the players. It's good for the team.
And once again, when you think of a guy like Tamawa from West Virginia, you lost a guy like Gilbert Edmond, right? He's left the program. And you lost a guy, look at the guys we recently lost. So you lost Goldie Lawrence, and that makes sense because the receivers you brought in from the portal. You lost Tiafasi from the defensive line because he wasn't really playing. You thought he could work out, but he left for Georgia Tech. And Gilbert Edmond left as well. So you're replacing some of the Malcolm Ray once again left. So you've replaced these guys effectively with new options, guys that actually do have good production from different programs. So that was some of the goal. You need to replace pieces. But that's my question to you. Do you think that they've simply replaced players that were missing? My thing is I don't know if we've replaced what we are missing, but I don't know if we've necessarily gotten better because I don't know if we've replaced the production of Verse, Fisk, and Lovett because we had to replace those rotational pieces of the guys I just talked about. Not to say that Edmond and Ray and those guys were going to have a major impact, but they were going to be your rotational pieces. You're hoping that they would have been developed for this next upcoming season and would have been playable, but they weren't going to be. We learned, and you had to bring these guys in. Do you think these guys we just brought in are miles ahead of those guys that you did get better by bringing these new guys in?
If you said today, are they ready to replace the guys that we lost in terms of production? You can't compare it that way. When Verse came in and Fisk came in, we didn't have really a clue of what their production were going to be, KB, to be honest. Yeah. So I think it's a disservice to compare these guys coming in against the guys we lost because you're not comparing two groups the same. Compared to the guys coming in when Verse came in and Fisk came in, I would say they're probably on par. Verse came in from Albany, a Division III program. He had no interest in high school. And so I think if these guys develop the same way as the Verse, which is no way to say that, or a Fisk, in 1 or 2 seasons, then we can better say that down the road. Yeah. I like these pickups is my answer. I think their attitudes are good. I think their physicality is good. And I think with the coaches we have who seem to be better on development of guys already in a college system versus going out and recruiting high school guys, I think we're taking a positive step. But it will come down to game time to see what the production will be. The biggest pickup is the quarterback, DJU. That is where you're getting solid, mature production out of this group at this point.
Yeah. No, like you said, they deserve to see what they do on the field.
Now, there's one more to add.
Yeah, the only thing I'll leave at that is that when Fisk came in, he was coming off a season at Western Michigan where he had 6 sacks, 12 tackles for loss, and Verse was like one of the top 5 recruits. Both those guys were one of the top 5, top 10 guys out of the portal that year. So that's where we assume they would have big impact. And we need these guys that we just brought in to have high impact if this team's going to go far next season. So, and like you said, I hope they do, and they have. So a few of these guys do have an experience, the guys we just mentioned, where they should have on that defensive line. And like you were just, I believe, about to say, on the other side of the trench, on the offensive line, just tonight, you got the commitment from Terrence Ferguson.
Goodness. Thank goodness.
And I think we need a couple more, if we're being honest, on the offensive line.
I agree.
This is a big guy, couple of years of experience out of Alabama. It's
6 foot plus, 300 pounds plus.
Big guy. And I'm never going to, and I do like that we're getting some of these guys from Alabama. Hopefully we'll get a couple more because they don't recruit the Warren players from high school. But this is a big kid, like you just said, 6'4", almost 300 pounds, a couple of years of experience there. He's gonna be ready to play in all indications. I think he's listed at like 322.
He's only had one career start now, and he's got 2 years of eligibility. I think he's going to be in the mix for the rotation for sure, and possibly a starter, because you have to figure even in practices there at Alabama, he's going against 4- and 5-star guys, and this guy was pretty highly ranked coming out of high school.
Yeah, they say he can play center or guard,
which like we need backups for both.
Yeah, you lost Casey Roddick. You're losing Casey Roddick. So it'd be great to have a high upside center.
And that's Terrence Ferguson.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, he only played 53 snaps in 2022. This past season, I believe he only played another 50, 60 snaps. So it's good and bad.
Be eager.
Yeah. He's got to be eager. That's the one thing. But he doesn't have a lot of mileage on his body, which is good. He's not banged up. He's not banged up coming into Florida State, which, as you know, offensive line, defensive line is the most violent place on the field. These guys are banging their bodies for 60 minutes or, 60 minutes. And these guys just take a beating. So for you to get a high upside guy that's been developed in a very good Alabama system, an elite Alabama system at that size, I think is a massive upgrade to your team.
Yeah.
Whether or not he's starting yet, whether or not he's a rotational guy, I think it just makes your room better.
I think that if they're going to bring in, and I'd like to see them bring in 1 or 2 more offensive linemen, but they've got to be proven guys. Yeah. I want to see them more productivity than even Terrence Ferguson. You need a guy like a Casey Roddick that had multiple starts. I'm not saying the guy has to be an elite NFL type guy. I'd love for that to be. Florida State is not bringing in those guys yet. For whatever reason, we're not bringing in those elite offensive linemen from anywhere in this country. So we're having to bring in some guys with potential like Terrence Ferguson and mold them and develop them into what I would say is average plus to good rating linemen. I don't think there's any lineman in the offensive line room right now that I would say is a NFL caliber guy. Can you tell me one guy?
Not a high round guy.
From round 5, first through 5 rounds.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Not right now. Not a guarantee.
No, we're not getting those guys yet, in my opinion.
No. Oh no, we're not. No. I would say, and I would say, I don't think anyone would argue that we had an elite offensive line or a great offensive line last year, given that they ranked high in some award.
Right.
It wasn't, I'm not saying they played awful either. I think they played average plus. And I know they were banged up, but that's going to happen. Every offensive line gets banged up. And that's why you have to have rotational depth that you can plug and play with guys. And I think adding Terrence is a great addition because he's a talented young man that hopefully can get some snaps and you can use him. But I think to your point, I think to your point, you do need to add some veteran presence of a guy that maybe at a lower program who's looking to potentially step up, who has some mileage, that's looking to, get to the ACC or get to a Florida State and show what he's got, or compete for a starting spot like you had with Casey Roddick, who you can plug in case one of these guys goes down, because you saw the injuries you had last year. Unless Alex Atkins is certain that Julian Armella and Lucas Simmons and these guys are ready to go.
Well,
so far, they haven't shown they're ready to go. I mean, Julian Armella barely played last year, and that's his second year. So is he ready to play this year? I don't know. But I mean, you've only really signed 2 4-star offensive linemen in the last 3 years. So unless you have some 3-star guys that are really highly developed over the last 3 years that are going to step up, I would honestly be looking for 2 or 3 more offensive linemen just to feel good about what you have
to compete.
Because I don't, because I would just expect your offensive line to play like it did last year. I would not expect a jump of performance.
Well, let's go into that a little bit then, because I've got a comment on that. Okay. I listen to open public source information a lot on different channels. And DJU's father, Big Dave, was on one of the shows, and I've heard him on 2 shows, and he's a fun guy to interview. Mm-hmm. He's a very enthusiastic, high energy guy that fully and totally support his kids that are playing D1 football. Okay,
I mean,
including his
other son's at Oregon, who's a very highly recruited player.
Exactly. Yeah. And there was some talk about trying to get him to Florida State.
Yeah, you're hoping.
But I'm not sure he needs to do that. He's in a very good program with Dan Lanning, unless he's not getting any snaps. Now, Big Dave is a very, very interesting guy, and he's not short on words. And I'm starting to see a new trend here as NIL and the portal and how college football is changing so much, and social media has changed everything from Coach Prime to now parents being very vocal in terms of social media, in the talking about their kids, and they're making their presence. And I'm not saying all of them. I think it's more of a few than it is a majority. But Big Dave is a big personality. He's going to be a big personality at Florida State, in Tallahassee, and certainly at the games. Now, he's still in California, but he's very excited to come out to Tallahassee, and he's going to be here for DJ's games, obviously. But one of the things that stuck out, and I've got a lot of quotes from him. I don't think I need to go through all of them now. And he's more than welcome. And if you're out there listening, Big Dave, you're more than welcome to come on our program at any time, and talk with us and bring up anything that you would like to talk about with us. But I found something very interesting, and it caught my attention because you know how much I have focused on our offensive line. I have been, for the last 2 seasons, have not seen it as a dominant type of offensive line, and that Jordan Travis and any of our other quarterbacks were often seen running for their lives, not necessarily on design plays. I understand there were design plays as well. But whether you agree or not with me, he said about DJ's time at Clemson, and he never bashed Clemson. However, there are some articles out there written by Clemson folks after DJ left that thought maybe he had bashed the program a little bit. But I read the articles. I didn't see that.
I saw a tweet this year that he was cheering for Clemson to beat Florida State this past. Like, I don't think it's
What?
He tweeted about when DJ was at Oregon State. He tweeted this year that he was like against the Clemson Florida State matchup. He was like, "Go Clemson!" Let's like. So he was still cheering for Clemson this year.
Okay.
Not that I care, but I'm just saying.
I read the article and I looked around and I read an article. I didn't think it was bad.
Fans, can.
I don't think it was a bash on Dabo or anything else. In fact, the articles, everything I've seen, he kind of praised the time of DJ being there and what DJ learned from the experience. And DJ said the same thing. And if I'm misquoting, please come on our program and tell me that I'm wrong. But I think that he said this, though, that caught my attention. At times at Clemson, and he was kind of saying that DJ needed to play better. He always says that DJ needed to play better, but the offensive line struggled. Okay. And that's the quote. The offensive line struggled at times, and the wide receivers were struggling at times. Okay. So he felt that impacted DJ's performance. So I guess my point is, any quarterback, including DJ or Tom Brady, if you watch Tom Brady at the Bucs, their offensive line was not elite, and he started to get beat up, and I think it forced him into retirement in his age as well. But any offensive line, and many of them do struggle, is Florida State has to really pay attention, and Coach Atkins pay attention to this offensive line. I think I've counted how many guys are in the offensive line room now with Ferguson. There's got to be, oh my God, there's got to be 18 guys, maybe 20 in there.
Yeah, but they're not all built the same.
No, I understand that. But, I mean, you're trying to go maybe 8 deep, in terms of guys on the field.
Oh, no. Yeah. I mean, you don't. Yeah,
because
you don't want to be rotating that much. You really don't. You want to be playing. Yeah,
but I don't think they have the depth in there. Darius Washington's tried to play every position on the field, right?
Because there's
no depth. Yeah. They can't put in Armella yet. They can't put in Otto yet. They can't put in Early yet. They can't put in Robert Scott as much. That he's in there now. He plays more than everybody. Brian Estes. I mean, there's guys that they can't do it with. So my concern is I hope that this offensive line gets straightened out, because I believe DJ can deliver the football to the tools we have and move this team when they have their possessions, if this offensive line can get their act together. But you also want to have a balanced running game to help your quarterback. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how Big Dave reacts, because there's some big games on this schedule coming up. We don't need to get into that tonight, but the early one will be Notre Dame, right? Don't we play Notre Dame?
I think the early one, but I think the early one's going to be in Ireland against a
I don't fear Georgia Tech. I don't fear them. They have a good coach. They have a good coach.
I do in Europe, and Georgia Tech played Georgia very tight. This isn't the Georgia.
And they have a good coach, and they have a good coach. We don't need to get into the line
in Ireland with a new team, a new quarterback in Europe. I'm not going to throw them away. So anything can happen when you're trotting out a whole new group of receivers, a new quarterback, a new defensive line. Don't overlook game one, guys. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, no, I don't think this team's going to overlook anybody, because you're dealing with a whole new team.
I'm talking about the fans. I'm talking about the fans not overlooking game one. That's
I think it's going to be very interesting. But I learned a lot in those interviews with Big Dave, talking about his family, his sons, and he's a very fun guy. He's very interested in meeting all the Florida State fans, and they're embracing him handily. And I hope that that this offensive line will help out their new quarterback. That's the best wish I have for this coming season.
Well,
and I'll say this about Big Dave, and then I'll wrap it up.
Let's wrap it up.
Yeah, Big Dave also is involved in NIL. Okay, now supposedly, and if I heard it right, he's involved with. He either has his own NIL company or he's involved with NIL companies. Okay, as his business, he was also a bodyguard for many superstars in the entertainment world and some NFL players. So he definitely has an interesting, a very interesting background. And if you haven't heard some of those interviews, they're out there on YouTube from other shows. I was listening to the show, and if I had an opportunity, I was going to ask one question, which I would love to maybe bring Big Dave on sometime if he wants to or not. We don't normally do that, but is why didn't DJ follow his coach to Michigan State?
I can answer. I mean, why are any of those players going to Michigan State? It's an S show. Why would you want to spend your last year in a rebuilding program?
Okay, there's your answer.
The question. You answer the question.
There's your answer.
Would you want to go?
Well, I thought he would be comfortable.
Program.
He would be comfortable in that system. I'm not sure it's a total rebuild there at Michigan State. They've had a lot of controversy. I think they have some good players at Michigan State, and I was just
a
little interested. I don't follow Michigan State. Okay.
Yeah, because all the good players left, like Keon Coleman did last year. Because they have
players leave all the time. You know, a lot of players have left Alabama now. Does that mean they're going to be a crap program?
Michigan State's not Alabama. So. They went 4-8 last year.
Okay. All right. Good answer. Good answer. Okay. Good answer. Good answer.
Yeah. I don't think we need Big Dave to answer that question, but
okay.
Yeah.
Good answer.
So that'll do it there. But yeah, I mean, if Big Dave doesn't call out the offensive line, if they don't play well, I'll call it out. So, because I think Jordan Travis did bail out our offensive line many times last year. And I hope that DJ doesn't have to do it this year. It'll be a different scenario because DJ is not the fast guy, but he is Big Ben like. He will be able to take some hits, and he will, I think, break a lot of tackles, but this offensive line needs to play better.
Hey, 4th and 1, I'm giving the ball to DJ.
Well, that would be nice to be able to move forward and not, I think Jordan Travis isn't always great at the QB sneak, and we're going to do that sometimes because
we had to get tricky at the goal line. I don't think you're going to have to get tricky with DJ at the goal line.
It'll be nice to have a power guy back there.
Exactly.
Like that. So that will wrap that up. One thing I wanted to post up, which I thought was interesting, is that they've identified the player who Alex Atkins was apparently in trouble for. And it's a name we all remember.
Mims?
Yep.
Oh, Lord. I saw that. Somebody posted that up.
Because they remember, we talked about this. Yeah. The meeting, was $15,000 a month. It was going to be $15 a month, $15 during the first year. And then shortly thereafter, the prospect withdrew his name from the transfer portal and remained at his previous school. So if it's Atkins, it's offensive line, and then didn't commit, went back to the original school. It's 99% as Amarius Mims. So
thanks to Hypnotic and Mark Dorfman for both bringing that up there. I didn't know if they were talking to other people in the chat. I saw that, but Mims was the guy. Well, that whole thing was a catastrophe, and then somebody goes and rats that whole thing out. That brings up another story that came to my attention, which I tweeted to you about. And I'm not going to get into specific names because I think it's probably common in most locker rooms. A source who has connections to the program I talked to on the phone this past week, and he brought up to my attention, he wanted to let me know that there was, and I think it's common in a lot of the locker rooms because of the NIL now, that there was one player in particular who's been on social media, and he's jumped in and out of the portal. Okay. I won't get into that of who that may be because we've had several players kind of do that a little bit, play with the portal. There was a player that has been leveraging or trying to leverage the system at Florida State, the battle's end, in terms of trying to increase his financial well-being, so to speak. And I think, and the source was telling me, the NIL money that some of these kids are getting is getting out within the teammates themselves. That's just, I don't find that too strange. I don't find it too surprising, even though I think these are deals that are supposed to be locked down and closed, confidential deals that they're not supposed to expose and could be voided potentially. But this source was saying that this one particular player in general was really, and his family were trying to really leverage the system. Now, I don't think that's probably something unusual in college football today. I think these things are going on. I think they're happening throughout college football and including at Florida State, that there's a lot of leveraging going on. It is the state of what we call college football today. So given that, he also indicated that this particular person had made some threats, not threats, but made some statements that potentially he would leave and take someone else with him, which I found kind of interesting. So I asked the source, do you feel Mike Norvell has lost the locker room in any way? And he said, no, that's not the word at all, that the culture is sound, it's solid, and that was not occurring given what he had heard around the program. So that's it. I think, again, I didn't find any of this too shocking, to be honest. Do you find any of that to be shocking?
No, but the one thing that kind of rubs me the wrong way, and it's not related to that directly, but and it happened this week, and you guys all know what happened was I'm kind of, it rubs me the wrong way, but Florida State desperately needed the news to happen, was the news of DJ Lundy coming back to Florida State. This rubs me the wrong way a couple of reasons.
And let me say this.
Please. Just okay, say it. What do you
the person I was talking about, is not DJ Lundy.
Okay, yes. I am talking about DJ Lundy. And why this rubs me, one, I'm not very mad because we desperately need DJ Lundy. We need linebackers. That's the one thing the portal has not delivered. We haven't got Lundy's or linebackers, should I say, after losing Deloach and Tatum Bethune. And if we had lost Lundy, I mean, we're still very screwed at the linebacker position, in my opinion, because we didn't land any really out of the high school ranks that are ready to play. And based on the Georgia game, didn't look like those kids are ready to play. The freshmen are not ready to play yet. Not to say they won't be developed into kids that are ready to play, guys that are ready to play, because I think they're Blake Nicholson and Justin Cryer and Omar, they're just not ready to play yet. And I think, once again, linebacker was a position of strength last year for Florida State, and you lost some key playmakers due to, eligibility. You need to bring some playmakers with experience back into the room, and you haven't done that yet. So hopefully Randy Shannon, that crew, maybe Alabama will have some guys that are wanting to come over. But DJ Lundy opted out of the Orange Bowl, decided to go, do his thing, go to Colorado, put on the jersey, talk to Dion, let his guys go out there, Kalen Deloach, go on that field, get their, tails beat the entire game. While certain guys went out there, played their last game for this program, and then Lundy said, "Oh no, I'm coming back, guys. I'm coming back." If I was, once again, I can only speak for if I was in that when I was in that locker room, and I was Blake Nicholson or Omar, young guys, who had to, who my teammate left me, and then it's like, oh, sorry, joking. We still cool. It would kind of rub me a little bit the wrong way, right? You got to go have your vacation while we were here working our butt off, and we didn't have your depth, we didn't have your leadership in this room to help us out during the ball game. That's the thing that kind of rubs me the wrong way about this whole scenario. Once again, I like DJ Lundy. I think he's a good player. He's not an elite linebacker, but he's definitely a good player that's going to add much needed experience and playmaking ability to this team. But that's the one thing that rubbed me the wrong way, because you had a lot of guys opt out for reasons, whether going to the NFL, or they were already injured, but or they already committed to other places and they stuck to those commitments. But this is a guy that committed somewhere else, and then whoops, just kidding, and watch your teammates get run over for 60 minutes. But I don't want to make a big deal of it, but that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And I don't know if that would rub other guys the wrong way in that locker room. But Florida State accepted them back, and that's fine. You need that. You do need Lundy. I'm not saying you don't, because you need that rotational piece, and he will be a leader of that room next year. That's the thing. He's the leader of that room now. He is the most experienced guy in that locker room, and you need more experienced guys in that locker room as well. So I thought that was an interesting move last year. So welcome back.
Let me welcome back, DJ. Now here's something in his defense as well.
Yeah.
I don't blame any of these kids anymore for what they're doing.
Sure.
This is purely, we see it now, as I said earlier in the program, KB, it is, if Mike Norvell is trying to leverage the program for more money based on what I just said about players trying to leverage the program, how can I blame a player who is leveraging the program if a coach is going to leverage the program?
Yeah.
It's all business. We have seen that now since the whole thing about missing the playoffs.
Yep.
We have now turned this page from the Rudy movie, if everybody knows what that is. If you're college football, you know what the Rudy movie is. That no longer exists. DJ might have had a conversation with his position coach, Randy Shannon, who then I would hope go to Coach Norvell or Coach Fuller and said, listen, I want to go out and test the market. I know it's not going to be popular, but I'm happy with everything here, but I want to go out and do this. I feel I need to check this box. Are you guys okay with it? I'm not asking you to hold a scholarship for me or promise me a scholarship if I decide to come back. But they might have said to him, DJ, you've been very loyal to this program. You go out and test it. And if you want to come back, you give us a call. As long as we have scholarships available in that room, in the linebacker room, we'll give you one.
Yeah,
or we'll reevaluate that for sure. I don't think they were nasty about it.
No,
I don't think he was nasty. We're not saying he was.
And that's the thing. That's just my opinion on the situation. I'm not saying he's a bad guy. This isn't about making people look to be the bad guy.
No,
right?
I understand. But I think I'm an old school guy. You're kind of an old school guy. You're making the transition faster than I am. From the locker room standpoint, I can see how a teammate would feel that way. All right. Yeah. Now, if I've got guys in the system that are working harder and this guy walks out, he's a little bit behind in my eyes if I've got a guy on similar grounds. But DJ has a lot of experience. Is he an elite NFL type linebacker No, he's not. No. Okay. But he brings performance and production to this room.
Yeah, absolutely.
It would be difficult to go out with a kid who already knows the system and where to line up is critical.
Yeah.
He's generally not going to bust a coverage or where he should be. So I say all of this leveraging by coaches, and I'm disappointed in Coach Norvell and I hope he's communicated with his players in a confidential manner of what the hell is going on in this program. I think it's a leverage deal, but all these players, they have my support on leveraging whatever they need to do or opting out of meaningless games. And some people could say, well, they were all meaningless because it didn't help us to win them all.
Well, that's the thing. That's where it gets dangerous. So you're like, well, if you're playing South Dakota State in week 2 or something like that, do they opt out of that week's game so they don't get injured? Like, it gets into a dangerous thing. Like,
I think that's different.
I
think that's different.
I get
you get my point.
But
I'm for the players now. I am for the players who put everything on the line. But I do also have a sense of what you're saying, KB, that there is going to be ruffled feathers in locker rooms across this country because of NIL deals that leak out, the money being involved, the new cars that are involved, and so on and so on.
And that's kind of the perspective I was speaking from, of like, if you're Blake or you're Justin Cryer or you're Omar and you're like, I work my ass off and, I want to be a leader in this locker room, and I think I can be a leader. And, you see a guy that is going shopping the market and didn't play in the Orange Bowl, didn't, get thrown around the field the entire game, but you were on that field, right? And then a guy comes back in and he's like, okay, I'm going to be the leader now. Does that cause a rift? I'm not saying it does or it doesn't, but like, if you were that kid, if you were, like I said, Blake or Omar and stuff like that, and you saw that happen, I don't know, but that's just how it came through my mind. I'm not saying DJ, like you said, DJ leveraged the situation. He knows he's the dog, he's the leader in that room because based on experience and production.
And he has to explain it to his teammates.
Yeah, exactly. And
he has to explain it.
And he leveraged the situation, which is fine.
The truth of the matter is always the best way to resolve the topic. Okay. So if he gets up with his teammates and says, listen, guys, I want to tell you exactly what I did and why I did it. I'm not telling you to do it. This is what I did. But I found that this could be a great recruiting tool to say, what I found there is not what I have here. Exactly. And it has nothing to do with playing time. It has everything to do with the family culture of Florida State University.
Totally right. Totally right. No, that's a great point. So,
and so he could become a spokesman for other players who may be thinking they're going to leave. Absolutely. People who have experienced the NIL. There's a lot of players who will go forward at some point in their career to test NIL. Guys who have been in the NIL should become mentors to the younger players about what the hell is going on out there.
And you've seen that too. You've seen guys who speak on behalf of the program development. I think you heard I think who it was I think Braden Fisk or Jared Verse for speaking to one of the defensive end recruits that they brought in, to talk to the layers of development you'll get. And, just to, like you said, it's not all, it's about NIL, but at the end of the day, if it's between 5 or 10K and it's about getting to the NFL, don't think short-term, think long-term. Can I actually get to the next level? Am I going to get the teaching and development that they are promising me? And if I can get a reference from a guy that I know is going to the next level, like you said, are they pitching to me what I'm actually going to get? And speaking to those references, like you said, is important. So,
let's face it, KB. What is it? Less than 2%, 1% will actually have a career. What is a career? 4 years, let's say, in the NFL. I mean, the majority of players that won't. So
most of Florida State's roster will not go to the NFL.
The future for a lot of these players is to try to make money now in what is the minor leagues of pro football.
Yeah.
That's what this has turned into.
Yeah.
And so the things we're seeing now is just the beginning phases of all of this, because the NCAA doesn't know their role. They're afraid to get sued in court, and they've lost all those battles. Yeah. So them throwing penalties, they should be teaching instead of penalizing programs. They should come in and teach, unless they found some guy was trying to hide it, lied about it, and did stuff under the table that is so so criminal, in a way that, that they should bring action, as we started the program with, which will unfold more. But, this is just the beginning of this.
Yeah.
The 1 year player, the rent-a-player I don't blame the players at all. And a lot of older fans do. This is not the football I know. No. I'm not going to watch it anymore.
And they have to get out of the mindset of like you said, and I'm getting out of this mindset. Like, you can't like treat the players like they're your best friends, and it's a business. It's a business for everybody. It's a business for the coaches. It's a business for the players. These players are not your best friends. They're here to, like you said, they're here to win, make money, get better. And if some of them get to the next level, that's great. But they are here for a job
and make relationships and create relationships.
Yeah, they're not here to be your best friend or to, they are here, to make relationships, make money, do what we all do every single day, or most of us is get our job done and put food on the table. Essentially, so wake up to that fact. It's not like the old days, and just get used to it. That's essentially.
You're exactly right, KB. And we have to understand, I don't believe there's any player in our program or any program, there's probably some, that doesn't want to do their very best. Okay. And even though we're on the sidelines and we give analysis or give our thoughts and comments, that's probably a better word.
Yeah, we're not
about how the game went and how a player played. These guys are doing the best they can. All right.
Yeah.
And none of us have ever played or ever would play at the levels they're playing at. But so we have to keep that in mind with all of the players. So from the coaches to the athletic directors, everybody is fighting for their careers, and they're all trying to make as much money as they possibly can under the circumstances. Now, I will say this. Big Dave said that DJU, when he was leaving Oregon State, only had one place in mind he wanted to come to, and that was Florida State. He wanted to come to Florida State, and when he was chosen to be that guy, he was elated with that selection. And it was not about NIL money. That's from Big Dave, okay? That he felt this was a solid program with a family atmosphere and that he could excel in this program. And from me to all of these players on the roster, all of the players that are coming in and other players that will follow, I know you do and I do. We wish them all the very best of luck and health.
Yeah, but at the same time, that doesn't mean we have to pander to them as well. And what I mean,
we're going to call it like.
Let me finish my sentence. I'm going to call out stuff when I see it. So we support you and everything like that. But that doesn't mean we're going to pander and say, "Great job, you look awesome."
That's not what we do.
If I see things that I do not like, I'm going to call it out. I'm not going to be like every one of these shows that claps every time you hurt your knee or fall down or you dropped the football. You'll get it next time. That's the thing I hate about some of these shows.
Well, is that pandering to the players or pandering to viewers?
No, they pander to both sides. They want to be best friends. Like I said before, these football players are not your best friends. They don't care about you. I'm sorry. These players, it's a business. Like I said before, they do not care about you. So you can suck up to them all you want. They're not here to be your best friend. They want to put food on their table. They want to make money. They want to make connections. They want to make connections. They want to secure their future. Right. And they they don't care how much you suck up to them and say how great they are. And Florida State, Mike Scott is all this stuff. Right. I prefer to be truthful in what I see and what I believe and not pander my opinion to, who's going to get me those clicks and the most views, stuff like that. That doesn't mean I won't be wrong. That doesn't mean my opinion or my facts won't be off.
Strictly an opinion for entertainment purposes.
I'm not just going to curb what I say just so someone will come onto my show, or I hope the star quarterback, the star receiver will come on and say some stuff and stuff like that. But I can't stand when certain people will always always put the spin on it so that, oh, good, look who retweeted me. Look who clicked on it. Look at it. It's not real. Not everything is positive. Not everything is roses. Not everything is happy all the time, because that's not the world. That is not what happens. And these guys aren't here to be your best friend.
Well, I'll tell you what, KB, to add on to your statement, if Mike Norvell jumps to Alabama, which I don't believe is going to happen, if he does, let's see how the fan base digests that piece. I don't think they'll digest it very well.
Once again, okay. I don't want to talk about that because I don't think it'll work. But
let me say this too, and I put this out in a tweet. The fans have to understand too, and Florida State fans have to understand this. Okay, I've been through more coaches at Florida State than most fans of this program. Is the Bobby Bowdens of staying and Nick Saban's and Joe Paterno's and the rest of those guys. Okay, all right. And the rest of these legendary coaches, Woody Hayes at Ohio State, and so on, staying at a program for 20, 25, 30 years, that era is over. That era is over, okay? You've got to get used to coaches staying maybe 5 years because they want a 5-year program to get things up and running. 5 to 8 years, maybe 10 at the utmost. Okay, you're not going to see it. If you had to go through and do a survey of all the coaches, how long they've been at a job, okay, you may find some at the FCS level who settle in or comfort zone guys. But most coaches now, because of career and their sports agents, they're motivated to move forward to other programs. Like, I think Dabo Swinney is probably ready to leave if he gets tapped on the shoulder at Clemson. All right. He would be willing to leave. But what I'm telling the fan base is, if Florida State does not, if Mike Norvell doesn't see a pathway for Florida State out of the ACC to one of the mega conferences in the next couple of seasons, if he doesn't leave now, no, just wait a minute. If he doesn't leave now, he will leave in the future.
Yeah.
Period.
So, yeah. I totally agree, because the only way you stay at the program for that long is if you're in a top 5 or 7 scenario program. And Florida State's if they're in the ACC, then that's not the situation. Florida State still is a top 5, top 10 program, but if you're still stuck in the ACC, it no longer is, because it's not a power 2
It's
conference.
not viable. It's not financially. It's not viable.
Yeah, no.
Now, they believe, a lot of the insiders, experts, who on TV, the real TV, believe that Saban really felt it was time to leave because he's not changing well to the NIL and the portal and all the ass kissing that he has to do anymore. And he's just like,
yeah, and he's also 72 and has nothing else.
I understand that.
I mean, like, what else?
Here's the other problem. Is he told his team supposedly he will have an office there at the stadium. So he kind of made a joke. I'll be having my own office. They've offered me so I can come down and kick your butt if I have to. Would you want, as the next coach, have him overlooking the program?
No, but I think it's like what Coach K. I think Coach K did the same thing.
I wouldn't like that at all.
Well, and back on that, I guess the rumor is that they're looking at Tommy Rees, the offensive coordinator, to be.
They can get him for a cheap price as a transition.
Honestly, I think that it may be good for. I don't think it'll be a career killer for him. He's 31 years old though. He's 31.
He's young.
He's young. Once again, if Alabama slides for a couple of years And then they go and say, okay, you don't have to follow the legacy of Saban. You have to follow the legacy of Tommy Rees and him winning 9 or 10 games for a couple of years. Then you could go approach a Dan Lanning again. You could approach a Dabo, or you could approach whoever, Steve Sarkisian at Texas, 3 years now, or if he bombs for 2 years. Alabama's a program that never died. It's like Florida State. You could go Willie Taggart mode, and it's still a relevant program. So I think going in that direction of a coordinator like that is actually probably the smarter move, because to your point, nobody wants to take over after Nick Saban. It is the biggest risk because you'll never be able to outlive the legacy of Nick Saban right after him. You will not. You need a buffer. You need a buffer coach. And for Tommy Rees at 31, he has nothing to lose. What he gets to say, okay, I got to coach for Alabama for a couple of years, and if I fail, I go back to being a coordinator. I get a huge payday. I get to go then be a coordinator again, and then I can build myself back up. I'm 31. I'll be 35 or 33.
Oh, he'll take it. He'll take it.
And then someone else, a better coach who's more experienced, gets to take over and doesn't have to be in the shadow of Nick Saban anymore. I think it's a win-win for both sides.
The question is, does Alabama want to put that risk there? Because they probably feel there's enough talent on that team with Rees in place that they'll make the playoffs.
So that's the
right.
Well, that's
it's
the
12
thing.
teams.
That's the thing,
right?
The thing is, if Tommy Rees takes over, they're not going to slide that much. They'll probably become. Yeah. They'll win 10 games, 9 or 10 or 11 games.
Even if they don't win the SEC.
Exactly.
They could still get the playoffs.
But then they just need 2 years, and then they can fire him and say, you're not cutting it. We're not winning national titles. We fire you after 2 years. Bring in the big guy. They just need 2 years. They just need 2 years of just somewhat okay wins. 10 wins, 10 wins.
But they're going to have to suck up the loss of money in the buyout.
But they haven't had to do a buyout in how many years?
12, yeah, but it'll be a new contract, KB. It's going to be a new contract.
It's not like they've had to do massive buyouts. And Tommy Rees isn't going to be able to leverage a $80 million buyout like Jimbo Fisher did. Yeah, he's 31 years old.
Right.
Like, what is he?
And he's never been a head coach, though.
Exactly. The buyout's going to be what, $10 million, $15 million? And Alabama can afford that.
Well, they could get him or Norvell for a fairly cheap price. Those are the cheap price guys on the list. Okay.
No, that's not going to be
so.
Sexton would not let Norvell go to Alabama.
Norvell's only getting $8 million now.
But the buyout, the contract would be different. The contracts would be different. I'm telling you, I wouldn't compare those two scenarios at all.
Well, I think the measuring stick going forward is, as a elite coach, you have to make the playoff system. You have to make the playoffs.
And
whether you win your conference championship or not. Now, Norvell could consider that in the ACC. If I don't win the ACC each year, the second place team may not get into the top 12. Is that possible in your opinion? Not to get in if you're number 2 in the ACC, the loser of the ACC team?
I already said that. I think ACC only gets one team.
You think so?
Yeah.
So that could be something that the coach, Norvell, or whoever it is at Florida State, if they're still in the ACC, could see as a detrimental situation, a disadvantage. Versus how many teams from the SEC would likely get in? 3?
6 to 8.
No.
Yes.
6 to 8 into the playoffs from the SEC?
Depending on how well they do.
Well, you got the Big Ten too, and you've got other teams.
That's what I'm saying. I think both those conferences will get eight combined. I think both those conferences will get 8 combined. 8 to 10 combined.
4 out of each, maybe some combination.
I think they could get 5 each.
Okay. So this is going to be a question. This is why I keep saying the most important issue of the day is this lawsuit that's going to take time to get Florida State out. If not, they were not going to keep any coach too long.
You think 5 teams was crazy for me to say? The SEC had 5 teams have 10 wins plus. LSU, Ole Miss, Alabama, Georgia, and Missouri all had 10 plus wins.
Yeah.
You don't think ESPN in the playoff?
And then you got Michigan, Ohio State. They're not going anywhere.
Again, going to the Big Ten, you had Michigan, Ohio State, both
Oregon,
11 plus wins. Penn State with 10 wins. Iowa with 10 wins.
Oregon.
That's 5 wins there. And then Oregon now in You could get 6 or 7
because the ACC has been downgraded.
I'm telling you,
yeah.
It's not far fetched to say you're going to get 10 minimum out of the Big Ten and SEC combined. Washington, Oregon, or Arizona, they were a 10-win team of the Pac-12. I'm telling you, the ACC is going to get one team, the one guaranteed team out.
I stay with the most important issue, and that's get out of the ACC. Period. Yeah. And we can't say, well, that's a sidebar issue. It's not a sidebar issue. It's a priority one issue. Period.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah. So
okay. Last comment. ESPN awards, fake awards. Did you read into that at all? What the shit was?
I sent it to you because I don't have.
ESPN has not had a good couple of months either.
Oh, I don't watch it.
I don't even understand the issue. They were putting in fake names for Emmy awards and then winning awards. I guess it was like the production and staff team that nobody sees, and then the awards were coming in, and then they were redoing the names and giving them to the guys on stage, Lee Corso and Kirk, and what a mess.
It just, if you want to hear more about corruption, whether or not you think Alabama getting into the playoffs was a scheme to give Alabama and Saban one more last gift to the SEC.
Yeah.
Whether you thought that was orchestrated or not, which it probably was. Read this article on the Athletic about like you said, ESPN finding ways to give their big names fake awards essentially that they didn't earn. It's just more stuff about ESPN and the weird
How do
stuff
executives make these decisions and keep their damn jobs?
It's
why
weird.
would you do this?
It's all just,
it makes no sense.
It's all just very.
The last issue I have on my list is the again, it's an ESPN Disney issue, McAfee and Aaron Rodgers versus.
No, it's not even an issue anymore. He was on today.
Kimmel. I saw but McAfee put out a statement he wasn't going to be on anymore, and he was on. I didn't understand what I was watching.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's on again, so it's not an issue anymore. So
even though McAfee put out a statement,
yeah, he was back on today, so I don't think it's an issue anymore. It's not an issue anymore, so that's.
I don't know what goes on in these boardrooms.
Well, once again, McAfee wants to be all cool, but then he realizes that he can't do so much with ESPN, and he wants to try to act like a tough guy with ESPN execs. But ultimately, ESPN will always win out. So he may act tough now, but I think at the end of the day,
was that the point of bringing Rodgers on immediately again?
Yeah, I think he's trying to bite back and try to show his audience that he's not going to bend to ESPN's will, but
it makes him look a little foolish because he put out a well-written statement saying he's not going to be on it. I mean,
but now he's trying to save face. He's just trying to save face. He's just trying to save face.
Unbelievable.
Well, and that's why Clay.
Do you think he was leveraging them that they may go take it to another channel?
Well, he's just saying that there's a war at ESPN right now behind the scenes. But regardless, ESPN's paying us checks, so McAfee will bend. It'll be interesting to see what's going on. I wish there was a reality show showing what the hell. There'll be a book about this someday about this fighting.
Dave Portnoy should to talk about some of this stuff. Unbelievable. And I'm tired of seeing Kirk's dog. I wish he would take it down. It's a beautiful dog. You have beautiful dogs, which you posted a picture of on Twitter of Bowden. And but Kirk's dog, he keeps using the dog. Let it go, man. Let it go.
It's weird.
He had the dog on the field. He's getting laughed at, probably by his own co-workers. Come on, Kirk. Come on.
It's
Lord.
it's weird.
I'll tell you, what a week.
Yeah.
But I've been under the weather, so I've been sitting around reading and watching it, and it's not over yet. I do believe in summary, and we're going to get off the air here unless you've got some other items. The bottom line is, I don't believe Norvell. I don't think you believe Norvell is leaving. We think he's leveraging FSU for longer. His Jimmy Sexton, his agent, is leveraging FSU to make his terms better in this regard. I don't think Norvell has any intentions, but I hope they wrap this shit up by tomorrow. By close of business tomorrow, he needs to be in touch with his players of what the hell is going on, because this can be detrimental to your program.
Yep.
Okay, and to your fan base, who is totally loyal to you.
Yeah,
you have them, even though your program is not fully transparent, and that's your desire. That's okay, but there's not a lot of transparency in the NAL program across the country, so none of us know what's going on there. We don't know how much money Florida State has, Alabama has, Texas A&M has. Nobody knows, and so it leads to rumors and everything else, but there's not a lot of transparency now. Even in the FSU media, the guys who do it 24/7, they don't even get any leaks from anybody. It comes from the bigger dogs in the sports media business. So that's
I'll just summarize it here. Dave Portnoy says, this is dumb. FSU just continues to get fucked. The NCAA is pathetic. They are trying to put toothpaste back into the tube. It's over. Players get paid. Who cares how? They're just trying to keep a shred of authority, give schools salary caps, and call it a day.
Unbelievable.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree.
Put salary caps on, balance everything, make schools pay for it, universities pay for it, in combination with the collectives, and just make it all visible. Get everything out of the shadows.
Get it out.
And just make it all transparent.
Where it's going to come out where it's going to come out, where the visibility is going to start is come tax day. Because players, and if they're not, they're going to be criminally liable, because you have to pay tax on NIL money. So
all money.
That visibility is going to come due pretty soon from the organizations that are collecting it and paying it out, and how all that tracks.
Well, one of my friends who's a wealth manager, he's speaking at Winston-Salem State on an NIL panel of helping athletes like how they can manage their money. So I'm hoping most schools do things like this, or more schools. Better. I think it should be a requirement that if you have an NIL collective, that you educate student athletes on how to manage their money.
Absolutely.
It should be, but once again, NCAA doesn't care. They don't.
Well, I don't know if they don't care. I don't know if they know how to do it properly.
And they're dumb Fs. If they can't figure out how to put they can't put guardrails into place to protect student athletes and protect everyone involved, then they're dumb.
Well, I think the first thing, like I said, this violation against Florida State and Coach Atkins, the first thing in an organization, this is all such the wild, wild west, even the NCAA should say that, is, listen, we've picked up some information. We're investigating it. We want to work with you guys to straighten it out and re-educate. But if they found out Atkins was doing this totally under the table, he was trying to hide it and do it deliberately, and he knew what the rule was and everything, then you come down hard on people, okay? If he did it inadvertently, fully admits to it, didn't know the difference, or he went to compliance officer at Florida State and they told him something wrong, then that we're in a learning environment on portal. We're in a learning environment on NIL. This is an evolving situation. Why can't they use it as a teaching platform unless it's so deliberate and so bad that you really have to issue that? And I hope Florida State issues statements about this. They can't let a story like this die.
They already did issue a statement on it. They accepted the penalty. They worked with the NCAA and accepted the penalty.
Okay. Well, then there it is.
And they affirmed that the head coach, promotes and happens, because the compliance department actually reported it. So that's
good. That's a good thing.
And they said that the head coach had no knowing of it going on, and they confirmed that. But yeah.
Okay. All right. All right. So, very good.
Yeah. So that, I mean, like you said, I don't think it's a big deal. Well, I don't think the activity was a big deal, but once again, the NCAA is just not consistent. Right. So that's it. Thank you all again for coming by.
We'll monitor the Norvell watch.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything there, but if anything does happen, we will let you know. But thank you again for your comments, your likes, your sharing the video. We always appreciate it. Hopefully, we'll see some more commits come through, especially on the linebacking core and the offensive line potentially. I would love to see that. But some good news has come this week. So always happy to see those portal guys come through. And we'll keep you posted. But thank you again. Have a great Friday tomorrow. Have a great weekend. Stay safe out there. And as always, go Noles. Take care, everyone. Stay safe.
Bye-bye, guys.